Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Tara Time, where we talk about all things business, all things leadership, and sometimes all things Tara. Today, I have got a super special guest, and this wonderful woman whirlwinded into my life just a couple of months ago. And we have been in contact, I think, every week since, and have been working together on some super magical things. So I am going to bring in Katherine Evans and let her introduce herself and tell us a little bit about who she is and what she does before we dig into some really, really incredible topics today. So welcome, Katherine.
Hello.
Introduce yourself. For anybody who doesn't know you, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I'm Katherine Evans. I'm the geotechnical manager for Tarmac covering the southern region. I'm a mining geologist, but I've also founded Boulders Brass last summer. We only set up in July and we're already 465 members deep in our women's safe space, and I think about 163 in our allies group.
Incredible. So we met through the magic of LinkedIn, which is proving to me to be one of the most incredible places to meet people with similar opinions, similar like-minded approaches to things, and that certainly happened when I met you. Now, obviously, you're working in a male-dominated industry, and that is something that I work with many of my clients with. And now you founded this women's network. But what I first want to talk about is working in a male-dominated industry, some of the challenges that we face, and specifically your journey. So how does one even start on a journey to becoming a mining geologist, and some of your experiences along the way? So how did you get into it?
My first job wasn't even in mining. I was working offshore in oil and gas, and same thing really. Same kind of industry, one of very few women, less than 10% on the rig that I was on. But because I did geology in university, it was exactly the same. Not that many girls. I think I was the token out of a group of 8. It was just me. So it just becomes very normal. And my upbringing, I was the only girl amongst a load of boys. I think Swansea's known for having mostly boys. just a lot of boys. So I don't think I was never brought up to think I was any different apart from burping. My mother would say, "Not ladylike." Well,
oh my god, that is when my mum watches this, which she absolutely will, she is going to be nodding along. So I was told all of my life, why do you burp so much? And I still like, you burp so much. And when I was younger, I prided myself on, and this is why this is called Tara Time, actually, because usually I divulge something that is too deep and too personal for the internet. And today I'm going to carry on that tradition. I used to pride myself on how far along the alphabet I could get burping. Like as a skill, and I once got all the way to S. So burping, yeah, I'm here for that.
I'm terrible at burping. I just like to. Well, it's just burping, isn't it? Everybody's going to do it. You're like, oh, excuse me.
Okay, burping aside. So, but actually, why geology then? Why, obviously, like the career path follows the study, but what got you into studying geology in the first place?
It was with a teacher. When I started in year 7 in school, Mrs. Tanner had a box of rocks on her windowsill, and I said, "Miss, why have you got a box of rocks on the windowsill?" And she said, "Well, you stay for A-level geology, and I'll tell you then." So I did.
So just being nosy. That's what got you.
Yeah, I had nothing really going on for 5 years, so I just waited until I got there. Yeah. And there was there was only 2 of us in the class by the end. By the time we did A-levels, like the girls anyway, the boys, I think there was about 8 of them as well. And then I went off to study geology, and if I hadn't studied geology, the plan B was I was going to join the army, but didn't. I went to do geology instead, and just loved it. I found it really hard in uni. I did nearly drop out in the second year to become a tattoo artist, much to my parents' disgrace. I remembered I didn't really like blood, so that was a non-starter. Yeah. I carried on till it finished, because once you're through the second year, you're pretty much done. But yeah, I got a 2-2. not a 2-1 or a first. And look, I'm still here. And
Love that as a message. Love that as a message.
I saw something pop up the other day on LinkedIn that they were only accepting graduates who they had like a 2-1 in the pipeline. It's like I think they were quite happy that I passed. So much by the end of it, but just because you're not good at doing exams doesn't mean that you're not good at doing what you've been studying. It's all about practical, and there aren't really exam conditions in the wide world, so I think we put far too much pressure on exam conditions.
Yeah. I actually really liked that. So I did a project management degree, and what I really liked about my degree was there was a dissertation like there is with any degree, but rather there was a few exams, but one of the main, like our majorly scored thing towards our degree was it was like a practical project. So we had to run a project. We had to run a mock project and do all of the processes and procedures and paperwork and like run a project like you would do in real life and hand in essentially. I remember I actually handed it in on like, I had to get what is it called? Like a little trolley, because there were so many binders of stuff, like of all the papers that I'd done. But I didn't have to sit in an exam room. I had to run like it was going to be real life. And when I got into the real world, I was like, oh my God, that was so valuable. Like it actually was useful rather than exams. So I don't know, I think there's something there, like surely there could be some more practical options over exams.
Yeah, master's degrees, that they're only there to set you up for actually going into industry. And I went back to start doing a master's and was just sitting there going, this isn't what it's like. This is lies. And you lot, why can you not get here for 9 o'clock? You're going to be on site at 7:30. So it's pointless you walking in at 5 to 11. Like, give me your name so I know it, and you're not getting a job with me.
I love it. So geology. So your first job was in oil and gas, and then second job is that when you got into mining?
Well, I moved to Netherlands for a year, and I was working in botanical gardens with like a big group of ex-offenders. They're sort of like the transition period between them coming out of prison and getting a job. And I was learning Dutch at the same time, but I was only there for a year, and when I came home, that's when I started working in the coal mine, and that was great. Mm-hmm. That was really, really fun. I think I was just probably very young and naive and didn't actually have that much responsibility, even though I would get really, really wound up and stressed about stuff. It was good because it was a small company, and we were in charge of the site and everything that went on with the site. You got to do so many different things and got experience in loads and loads of stuff. And the people who worked underground, all the men who worked underground, I think it was a bit of a novelty to have a woman come underground, and it always got offered to me to carry you over a puddle. You're all right. Who's scrubbing your back later, Catherine? Like myself, as usual. Yeah. They all stand in a circle in the bathhouse and wash each other's backs.
It's called what was the thing with a stick? It's called one of those. It's called a back scrubber. You know, loofah.
I'll just leave it dirty. It's fine.
Okay, so and that was in Wales.
Yeah, that was in Glynneath. And then that was closing because the price of coal just dropped. So 2012, 2013, then I asked if I could just move with the company. So they sent me to British Columbia, and I started working in Opencast over in British Columbia in Canada. And that was an eye-opener. So it's just like the second time I just got up and moved my life to a different country.
Woman after my own heart.
Yes. Value freedom. There was definitely that. It could not be held down. And I just do it by myself. So I think I had a lot of, I wasn't really afraid to just get up and go. Probably naive again, but it worked. It was fine. Yeah. It was such an experience. And I remember the geologist telling me in the mine before I went to Canada, he said, this is going to make you going over there, because you could be a brand new person when you move away. You don't have anything following behind you. You can just start afresh, and you can you can go in there at like any way you want to. It was great. Yeah, it was hard work. people were very different. You wouldn't expect there to be such a difference, but because it's Canada and it's made up of lots of people who had moved to that particular mine, it seemed that everybody had some sort of Welsh heritage, and they said that they moved there from South Wales. I was like, yeah, where? I don't know. I was like, do you know where Wales is on a map? They all thought it was Australia.
I think that the point about reinventing yourself. So when you said that, I got a little bit goosebumps because there's something that comes up. I work with a lot of like people who move internationally regularly, like project based, who will go one project, then the next project, then the next project. And that comes from my background in project management, right? And I've worked with these people before, and now we work together on a different basis. But that is something that comes up with nearly all of them. And that is one of the most exciting things that we go through of this. I'm going to get to a new place now. Nobody knows me. I can just wipe fresh. And because we can do that whenever we like, really. It is within our power to do that. But it's much more difficult when people know us and we have to change people's opinions and we have to change boundaries and we have to change perceptions, and people who are used to us being a certain way or doing a certain thing. We can do it. It's there for us, but it's harder. When you've just got a clean slate, it's like, it's much easier. Somebody's just giving you that on a plate to go there, you go be whoever you want to be. But I think what I've seen is people say that they want to do that, but actually when they come to doing it, it becomes very different. And I think it's really important to think about, because we can reinvent ourselves, but it's how can we reinvent ourselves to be more us? Because we don't want to be just showing up and pretending to be somebody else just because we have the opportunity. It's about how can we like step into more of us that we might have been holding back in other places. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something I found coming back this time from maternity leave, because you take that big gap, it's kind of the same. And I've come back and having gone through all of the postnatal depression and psychosis and the PTSD from the first birth, coming back with a completely different head on, and hearing from like my little group that I'd built around me of people who were really positive, and they're going through negative stuff as well, but stay positive. And they were telling me like how they saw me was exactly how I wanted to be seen. So I felt like that was, I'd won there, and I could develop that further and like keep pushing that. And I felt like my values were coming out in how I was acting and how I was being perceived, which was like, that's your super strength then, isn't it, coming through? Yeah.
Amazing.
So yeah, it's been really good having these people. I think that's the important part, is like building that network of people around you.
Yeah. And like, there's so many challenges that we face when we work in male dominated industries, even if, and I'm like, kind of like you, not necessarily being brought up around boys, but always being a bit of a tomboy, never being afraid to be in the group of like that. The male dominated industry thing was never something that I actually kind of thought about as being a thing, really. Like, I wasn't afraid to go get into it. I wasn't, any of those things. I wasn't afraid to go get a job in construction or anything like that. It was only once I got in there that I've realized what's going on here, like that there are differences. And I talk about this a lot because and when I first started talking about this, I felt quite uncomfortable and I felt like people would judge me. But my ethics and my message around doing things irrespective of what other people think and whether they judge you or not. There are huge issues with women working in many male-dominated industries, mining, construction, all the male-dominated industries. There are massive systematic issues that exist, right? Pay gaps, just unfair treatment, all of the things, right? And we're going to get into, I'm going to ask you in a minute about some of your experiences there. But for me, my job isn't to tackle those gender equality issues at a systematic level. That's not what I do. It doesn't mean that I don't think it needs to be done. I do think it needs to be done. And there are people including the likes of you, who are bigger and cleverer than me, that are doing that, or that is their thing, right? Who are tackling it on a bigger scale, on an industry scale, on an organizational scale. But for me, my passion lies with individual scale, because I think that there's a really powerful thing to be done there. And without saying, well, it's actually your responsibility to fix all of these issues as an individual, because that's not what I'm saying. It's, you can make an impact by taking personal responsibility of how you're showing up, how you're being visible, how you're leaning into your unique strengths and your superpowers, how you're asking for the things that you want to have. You can take personal responsibility for those things, and that in turn can create change in the industry. So like, I had this fear about saying, I work with women in male-dominated industries, but my bag is not systematic gender equality. It is helping people take personal responsibility about how they can do things that are within their control, because that's always been my thing. Like, I'm like, okay, yeah, there are issues, but I'm not letting those issues stop me. I'm going full steam ahead anyway, and just watch me in the face of those issues. But you've set up an incredible group that is creating change in the industry, and I want to understand some of the challenges that you faced that made you want to set that group up.
It's a build-up of the last 15 years worth of tiny little things that I've got on my tit. That's
yes.
Yeah, being told I couldn't have a full set of underground clothes because I was a woman and I didn't go down very often, even though I did, and I sweat just as much as the men. Wasn't allowed to have my kit sent away. I had to wash it myself because I just didn't believe I was going underground enough. Being told to clean the office because, like, just having a beeline made for me as the only woman in the office, this office should be clean. I was like, right, okay, gotta clean it then, isn't it? It's gonna be good. Oh mine. Yeah. Being paid $20,000 less than the men in the mine in Canada because I was foreign and a woman, and I needed to prove myself, although I'd worked for the company already for 2.5 years, which was longer than the men who worked there. Just like people not understanding the systemic sexism bit, that telling me the only person who sees women and men different really is you. It's like, yeah, of course. That's why you're standing there doing that job and I'm doing this job, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, and like seeing little bits of bullying and women not feeling strong enough to stand up to it. Women being played off against each other when you've got an issue with another person who happens to be a woman, and if you raise it, you're being catty. It's not taken seriously. Women not feeling strong enough to ask for pay rises. Women being interrupted on stage when they're doing presentations because the speaker thinks that is acceptable. Stuff like that. It was just generally, COVID, and the way that was just, everything seemed to be put in place for one type of person and one type of person only, and children suffering because of it. Women expected to pick up the slack on so many things, just wording from the government around stuff, and you just think, oh, who are you getting this from? Who's feeding you this stuff? Oh, I know, we've got a problem in the government with women as well. It's like absolutely everywhere. PPE for women in nursing through COVID. Yeah, all of that stuff. And it just, when I came back then this time after maternity leave, and it was July, I came back in May. Yeah, I just sort of tipped over the edge, and we were sitting in a conference in Devon and talking. I didn't sit on my table with the tarmac team. I wanted to sit on other tables so I could speak to other women, which I found one that had, it was Lauren Beveridge, who was working in South Crofty. I really wanted to sit by her because she'd done a presentation and I thought it was brilliant. So I wanted to go and talk to her about her experiences working in mining, and speaking then to a lot of the other women. I could see like the stories that were coming out were the same they were being treated the same way. It's just we were all separate, and women didn't realize that this is so normal. It's not you. This is society. Yeah, this isn't abnormal for you. So maybe if we all got together and share these experiences and how we overcame them, or had a way of pushing and pulling each other up the ladder, we could help each other. So that's where it came out. But it's just grown from there. And now we are a tribe, and we look after each other in a different way. If there's any way that we can help each other, because the boys club's been going for ages, we can do that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the point of not feeling alone, I see that especially when I run group things regularly, that is the number one thing. It's not the learning. It's not usually like the content that somebody walks away with, or it's somebody like, what's the most powerful thing? And they go, just realizing this isn't just me. Like, I've spent 20 years thinking that this was me. And it's absolutely flabbergasting to me that there's still so many people experiencing that and sitting with that, thinking, it's just me that feels like this. It's just me that feels like this. And what that does to you, and like not speaking, and I'm just looking in the comment section now, because Lauren Beveridge just said, I love that you came to sit with our table. And Shireen said,
with you, Lauren.
I got a tutu. Or Shireen also shared saying, I've got a tutu, always been a bit ashamed of that. Again, here we go. You're not alone. Katherine certainly isn't ashamed of it. We don't need to be ashamed of any of that. Like, we need to be proud of how great we're doing and what it is we're achieving right now, irrespective of our exam results. So I love those comments. So creating the change is clearly your driver. Actually doing something about it. Like, we can all talk about it. And again, that's something that I talk about regularly. We can talk about changing. We can talk about implementing things. We can talk about going out and getting what we want. We can moan about problems. But are we actually going out and doing something to change? And you are clearly one of the people who just goes, right, we're going to do something here. And what I loved and what I noticed about Boulder's Brass when I went in there is, it isn't just people talking. That's great, don't get me wrong. Networks of people talking is super powerful in itself. But it's people doing. Boulder's Brass is doing. Like, talk us through some of the campaigns that Boulder's Brass have been working on, and because this blew my mind.
PPE Revolution, that one's been amazing. The uptake from designers and people who just want to get involved some way or form, or they want to share their experience, or they want to say, we're trialing this kit, have you seen this, or this is what we can get in Australia, has this reached you yet, this is what we've got in Canada. And then just the individual people who will contact me asking for advice on where they can get PPE, or if I've been able to find something that fits this gap in the market, and then I can feed that back to the designers, because I've got lots of connections now with like Leo and Blackladder and Pulsar and V12 and Rockfall, and they want to make a change. They really want to help. They just need to know. And I think that's the bit that's been missing, because we've always been forced into wearing men's PPE. This gap in the market hasn't been realised. And the more we keep wearing men's PPE and don't actually feed back our issues, so we can moan about it, or we can just shout about it. And the shouting about it is actually getting something done. Other things we've got then, like Charity Rose has been doing some amazing work with period product disposal, so that we can actually have somewhere to change a tampon. This is something that it's like people just forget, because mostly men are the ones who are in the procurement departments buying the stuff that we supposedly need. Forget that period products and toilet paper is exactly the same thing. It's just we use both, they just use one. And having somewhere to put it, you can't flush it. You can't do that. So having things available, that's been great. And it's like people are paying attention, and now they're pushing it, and we're into the magazines, and we're doing the podcasts for it, and it's just great, because you can see it's actually working. So like my impact value is being achieved, which makes me really, really happy.
And that's what I mean, like, if anybody takes anything from today, it is just like, go be a doer. Because moaning about things and not having seen any change is exhausting and it's boring. Actually, it's exhausting and it's boring. Second, that feeling when you have made an impact, you have changed something, doesn't matter how small or how big, but your personal impact on that. I mean, how great does that? You just did a little, like, you just saw you get animated just talking about it. Like, this is what we've done. This is what we've done as a group. We have actually managed to create a change. And like I said, you're attacking this on an industry level, on a systematic level, and going in at the things that are clearly important to the people in the group. And we know that because you've experienced it. You've been through those things, so you can lead those campaigns from a place of, I know that this is a problem. Like, how can we actually create any change?
Yeah.
Is there anything? Oh, sorry, go on.
Just that tiny change, just a PPE. People may not have realised that it's an issue, but for PPE, first of all, it's safety. It's supposed to be protective. It's supposed to be personal, so it should be fitting you. But the other thing is when you turn up at a site looking like a complete wombat because you've just like borrowed your parents' clothes to site, nobody's going to give you the time of day. And nobody is going to think that you are the engineer on site or you are the manager, because there's that thing of you're a woman, so obviously you're lower down the chain anyway, and then you look like a complete dick. So
yeah,
it's going to be really, really difficult. And then we wonder, why aren't women progressing? Why are women leaving? And it's not all coming down to PPE, but that's just one thing we can change. And that one tiny thing is something that can change culture. And changing culture is a big thing and it's going to take time, but you actually have to do the tiny little Lego blocks at the beginning. And we can.
Yeah. And I love that. Like, I'd thought of it only really from a safety perspective when we talk about the PPE thing, but you've just got like the cogs going in my brain about how when I even just like a high vis vest, when I used to work on the construction sites, of either had to, like you say, had to go looking like it was somebody like a huge baggy thing, or because the one that fitted would not fit around my tits. So I couldn't do it up around my boobs.
Yeah.
So that's either like one that's massive. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, you're right. Like, that is one thing that also not just being safe, but actually feeling good in your clothes. Like, who wants to rock up feeling like a bag of shit? Nobody does. You want to feel good in what you get to wear or what you need to wear to keep you safe. So I love that. I absolutely love it. Any campaigns upcoming or ideas for the future that you've been thinking about that you could share?
I really, really love the one that's a bit of a slow grower, because it takes a bit of courage from each individual, and that's the Representation Matters campaign, where posting selfies, and it's a bit difficult because you've got to get permission to be able to post them. Posting selfies of you at work doing your thing to get the representation out there that we are here, and if you can see it, you can be it. So that's one I really, really love. We really want to make a little film. I'm back in Boulder's Brass, so that's something that we're really interested in doing. I'm excited about it. And Erin, and we want to be able to just push the word out and get us out there and show that there is still a problem. A lot of people don't realize there's a problem because they don't understand bias and they've never actually felt it themselves. And there are plenty of people out there who haven't had bias and they've got to where they are in their roles in the construction industry, but that's not the experience of everybody. And I think by getting more voices out and say, these are my experiences, this is what's happening, and people will be more aware.
But also good and bad. I think there's a great opportunity to share where there are companies that are absolutely great to work for and that are nailing it. And so that people are aware of those, one, so they can flock to them, right? Like where people have had great experiences. Because often we go straight to the, okay, these are the problems. But if we can share and we can use those things as case studies, we can use, where we're seeing much better representation on boards, on sites, on, you know, all that kind of thing. Like if we can share that to, like, say, if you can see it, if you can actually see where it's going well too, it's inspiring for people, especially young women, to go and get into it. So I think that's awesome. Okay, so you touched a little bit about on international, and I want to, obviously that's close to my heart because I love hanging around all over the world. And you dropped one that I didn't know about. So I want to talk about your 2 experiences of working abroad. So let's start with the Netherlands. Tell me about that.
I moved out there. I met somebody when I was working offshore. I didn't stay working offshore, just I couldn't see a future for me as a woman doing it because I couldn't imagine actually having to leave my children for 2 weeks at a time. So I finished that. I went to live with him. He carried on working on the rig. So for 2 weeks of the month, I was completely on my own. And I had to learn Dutch very, very quickly. Otherwise, I was going to be screwed. So I started going to classes with a lady, like a retired teacher, just sit there with her and a Romanian woman, and we were learning. And I got an insight into Romanian culture that I had absolutely no idea about. Like her Christianity compared to my like scientific background.
Yeah.
It was just amazing to not like we were so far apart, and it was so good to just sit and learn something like that. And then I started going to a school. It was like a school for buitenlanders, so people from outside the country, where I was learning Dutch with people from Eastern Europe and people seeking asylum from the Middle East. So that was like the cultural differences there was fantastic again. We did a lot of culture things, a lot of culture sharing and celebrating each other's celebratory days. And then at the same time, because that was only 3 days a week, I was working in the Kruidhof, which is like a botanical gardens that is only open 6 or 9 months of the year, and then the rest of the time, it's just the gardens being turned over. And I actually got moved from there to go and work in the council because I didn't understand because my Dutch wasn't good enough. However, the ladies who were pruning the roses weren't impressed with the things that the men were saying about me. So they moved me to go and work in the council and work on this. It's like a Dutch bike route through the meadows to teach children about glaciation of the area that I was living in the Netherlands, which is Friesland. I did one in Dutch and one in English, and then that was my last bit before I moved home. But it's such a good thing experiencing a culture when you were just completely immersed in it. Just they're only on the other side of the water, but the difference is unbelievable, and it makes you think a lot of things about yourself then, a lot of questions about what is right and what's wrong. And I really appreciated coming home to the UK. I just saw it in a different light, which faded pretty quick. So I went to Canada instead.
I love that. Yeah, that for me, one of my favorite things for sure about living abroad. And my first ever international assignment was in the UAE. And so in Dubai, I don't know if it's in the UAE or in Dubai specifically, but the population is 90% expats and 10% locals, which is super interesting. It was super interesting to me. But those expats are from all over the world. Like I have never been thrown into like in my team alone, there was people from 20 countries. Like it's insane to me. And it was one of the most magical experiences, being able to learn. One, like you say, yeah, you learn about other people, but actually what you do is you learn about yourself the most. You learn about your opinions, your judgments, which it doesn't matter who you are, you have them, whether and like realizing them and realizing, like you say, questioning what's right, what's wrong, a lot of that. And also like tolerance and patience. I have been renowned for being the most impatient person, definitely not intolerant, but impatient my entire life. Like I've had zero patience until I moved abroad. And it's almost been like a change in my personality, which is crazy. Like I am an extremely patient person now. Like I've managed to teach IT skills to my IT illiterate mother, and I'm sorry, but over the internet, like teacher, like that took, and that was when I realized, I mean, I had a laugh about it. I was like, oh my God, this level of patience that I've got is very different. And that is part of that is like being patient with the bureaucracy that you face in other countries, the, not knowing the language and having to be patient with yourself to get by and things like that. But I think if anybody ever has the opportunity to live and work abroad, even if it's for a short period, you will never ever come back the same person.
Yeah,
Never
definitely.
come back the same person.
Could see that then in your friends when we came back, because my husband and I, we weren't married at that point, came back from Canada and just like, oh, this is weird now, because like our friendship group has changed. So no, they haven't. They're exactly the same as when we left. It's us.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? It's like when you do that, and I find myself like I'm constantly changing, and I actually pride myself on my opinions change all of the time. And when you do what I do, and I'm regularly sharing my public opinions online for people to listen to all of the time, and one week I say something, and maybe the next week I've changed my mind because I am constantly exposed to things that teach me something new that I didn't know the day before. But it's totally, that's okay. Like, we don't have to stay stuck just because we once thought something. We don't have to save face by thinking we have to think that always and forever because we told somebody it once. And I think that's like
mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like people get embarrassed and like, especially when you're in a position where you might like say, I might be advising people or sharing, that kind of stuff. And I'm like, actually, no, my advice has changed now. If you ask me 3 months ago or now, my advice has changed because I've changed, things have changed, the world's changed, my mindset's changed. And I think just being open to that and being like, there's no shame in changing your mind. There's certainly no no shame in having that growth mindset and being open to thinking new things and learning new things. And for me, that's definitely expanded. And I did a post about it this morning, like throughout kind of spirituality and energetics for me, like that's been a huge, I used to be especially like very logical, worked in the construction industry. I'm a project manager. Things like either happen or they don't happen. We use logical processes. What's this universal magical rubbish? I don't have time for that. And then I opened myself into new circles of people. And I thought, if I want to get everything that I ever want, why would I not try anything? Like, who am I to decide what's the right thing to try? Or like, I'm open-minded, but at my core, I am open-minded. So let's give it a try. And so I think that like just being totally open to change, open to learning, international life definitely gives you that. You said something to me about when we spoke about when you worked in Canada that just stuck in my brain and I really wanted to share about we expect, and we shouldn't expect, but we're used to being treated differently because we're a woman. We're used to, well, some of us may be used to being treated differently, different packages because you're a foreigner. But you said something to me about people raised the fact that I was short, like that was a thing.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I feel like they're offended with my height or something. Yeah, there was a man who was sort of the equivalent of our HSE mines inspectorate, and he said, I was doing shift boss course, and he said, you are really going to struggle to get respect of people as a shift boss, a shifter as they call it. I was like, why? Well, you're a woman, you're foreign, and they can't understand what you're saying. It's like, I'm clear. And then he's like, are you short? I was like, are you joking? I'm short. It's like, somebody needs to keep reminding me I'm short because I forget. Because, yes, everybody's taller than me, but when somebody goes, God, you're really short, I'm like, is it that obvious? It's like, because I'm short. It just blows my mind because yeah, I'm probably the smallest lioness you can find, but I like to protect people, and probably I'm a Jack Russell. That's what it is.
Well, I am also well. You can't obviously no, you can't see from Zoom, but I'm also extremely short. I don't even hit 5'2". I always say I'm 5'1" and a peanut. So also short. But when you said that to me, I was like, what the fuck? Like, what on earth? This is absolutely ridiculous. Oh, here we go. Sam is chiming in. Oh, those who underestimate a 5 foot Welsh woman. Good luck, mate.
Yeah, I was the perfect height
Yes.
for mining underground. I never knocked my hard hat off. Liam, who is my partner geologist, I remember him hitting his head on the roof. Ha!
Exactly. Like that is what we talk about. Like, how do we turn what are sometimes perceived as our weaknesses into our strengths? And that is the perfect example of that. And you don't get diamonds in shoeboxes. That is always my response when somebody wants to mention height. You do not get diamonds in shoeboxes. They come in a teeny tiny little beautiful box. So, owning it. Okay. We've done mining geology. We've done differences. We've done Boulder's Brass. Actually, before we move on from Boulder's Brass, why Boulder's Brass? Why the name?
Because bold is one of my values, and brass, because it came from, other than the fact it's a saying, because it all came from the Southwest and Cornish metals and like South Wales metals. Just like, what's that word? Alloys. And I was just like, wow, that fits pretty well. As bold as brass. Yeah.
I love it. I
Brassy
absolutely love it.
AF.
Yeah. And I've absolutely loved being a part of it. So for the last month during March, so Katherine has been like inviting coaches and speakers and things into the group to support the women inside there, which is amazing, like growth opportunity for them. And so I was super happy to do that. We've been doing it in March. I've done 2 sessions. The last session, I actually did a little cry when I got off of that session, Katherine. Because I'm wet. I am a wet. I'm a very emotional person. Just because it was first thing on my Monday morning, and I was like, oh, I get to do this. I got off that call and there was some incredible women. I saw some incredible smiling faces, people getting so involved, people putting the effort in, doing the work, being super vulnerable, supporting each other. And I just got off and I was like, oh, a little bit of tears coming out because I was just like, one, like this, I get to do this for my job. And 2, like, what an incredible space to be in with those women. So if you are working and correct me if I'm wrong, but mining, quarrying, construction,
rail waste, energy, so it could be offshore, any type, wind farms, any type of renewables, and all of the ancillary bits that go with it, because you have your ecologists, you have your hydrologists, there's so many little bits like the blasters, all these extra little bits. And you have, like, one of the stuff that I like is like plant, so you get like finning and stuff. People from finning, if there's women there, would take them.
Yeah, so if you are not, you need to be searching on LinkedIn for the Bold as Brass group and come and join, because it is a really, really wonderful space, and Katherine's organising incredible campaigns, opportunities, like say learning opportunities, which it's been a pleasure to be a part of. One thing that I wanted to talk about, and again, something that we spoke about that is obviously completely related to being just a woman at work, okay, and dealing with returning from maternity leave, dealing with postnatal depression and postnatal psychosis. I think you've struggled with as well. So would you mind sharing as much as you feel comfortable about your journey with having children and working and returning?
Yeah, it's difficult for sure. I didn't realize before having children that I was already going up and down through depression. I knew that something wasn't right, and I'd had eating disorders and exercise addiction and things that I'd had a general anxiety disorder. That was a really difficult one, because it could ruin everything, can't it? Anxiety. As soon as you stuck yourself in that loop, then you'll be gone for days, and you just sort of you're just down and down and down. But I had first baby, and having Idris, it wasn't a good birth at all. It took days and days for him to actually come into the world. And there was a lot of things that happened in that during the birth that I didn't give consent for. I wasn't fully prepared. I just got stuck into this like really cosmic what's it called? I can't remember what it's called now. But it's like you breathe out the baby. Nobody breathes a baby out. No. There's a lot of noise. Yeah. But in my head that this baby was coming into the world, and I was going to do it, and it was all going to be fine, and I was going to be in complete control, which is not what happened at all. That baby it's your first baby. It's hard work getting a baby out. The first one for definite. So there was a lot of stuff, and then afterwards, there was a doctor came into the room who I hadn't seen before. It was a man, and he's like, "I'll do the stitches." And the midwife is like, "No, I'll do the stitches. It's just 2nd degree. I can do it." And he's like, "No, I'll do them." And she's like, "No, I will do them." And at no point did anybody ask me what I wanted. And my husband's just sitting there holding the baby. And I'm thinking, I've just given birth. I have no idea what's going on. This has taken absolutely days. And I was induced as well. So like the pain was horrific. I'd run out of medication. And it was so much to take in. And then afterwards he did do them, by the way, and a terrible job. My brother told me afterwards, because I had his wife look at my stitches, that she said to him they weren't good job, and Adam decided to tell me that it looked like a pasty that had just been punched. Because he's a nurse and has no filter either. It's like great.
I've heard a few in my time, and from friends who've had children and have had similar experiences. And I've heard badly packed kebab before, but a pasty that's been punched.
But the stitches didn't come undone, so he must have done something right, because that was all fine. But I did have flashbacks and stuff, and I felt awful afterwards. But you just do, and your first one, you don't realise what's right and what's wrong and what's normal and what's not. And the health visitor I had was just terrible. She just treated me like I was a crack addict, because we were living somewhere pretty rough at the time, and I think she just sort of placed me right down here and talked to me like I wasn't there. Like I was just like thick as. I just wanted help. And it was really hard work. And then I just battled with that, came back to work, and it was okay coming back to work. I felt like I was in my team, because the team that I was in South Wales was really tight, and they were welcoming, and it was okay. So I slowly started to pick myself up through that, but it was nothing was right. And I was like still really down. And then it was like 2020, COVID happens, and then I was like down. And then I was pregnant again. And by this time, then it just was like 3, I think. So we got through the difficult bit, and now he can speak, so it's okay. It's not so hard, and he gets what's going on, and he's so excited to have a sibling. And then Yori is born in the house, and I was in complete control because there was no midwife. It was a completely different experience, and it was the experience I wanted the first one, but that's not how it happens in the first baby. But the second one, I didn't breathe that baby out, but it definitely came a lot faster. And then after that, then things just weren't right, and it was really bad. Like I could see that I had like this person in the Navy. It was a man in Navy. I kept being able to see out the corner of my eye, and I just knew that he wasn't there. But every time I moved my head, he'd be there, and that was like, that's not right. Obviously, that's not right. There's a man in Navy in my house, and kept thinking that I was going to throw Yori down the stairs and visualizing it. And Idris as well, could just hear him. There's cliffs down at the end of like straight out from here to the sea, and it was I just kept on visualizing horrendous things. And my sister-in-law said, she was the midwife, said that this isn't right. I think you've stepped over now from baby blues, you're into postnatal depression. And from that moment then, when I spoke to my midwife, who spoke to the health visitor, who spoke to perinatal mental health, it was just brilliant. There was so much help because they knew what to do. So I had the head psychologist, who was a man, and he said, first of all, was like, apologize for being a man. And then he's like, is it okay that we talk about this and I'm a man, or I can get one of my colleagues? And I was like, no, it's fine. But he was really nice, and it was like connection through where he lived, and he really worked on making a connection, which I thought was great. And then he had one of his team nursery nurse came to see me every week, even though it was still COVID time. She was coming to make sure the bond with the baby was fine, which was never an issue. It was all me. What else? I had a group of women who were all struggling with the same thing, so that was good to be in a tribe where you could look after each other. And then I had one-on-one with a psychiatrist, and this course that I did for how to process like negative thoughts and these reoccurring thoughts. That was really, really good. That really, really helped. That changed a lot of things. But the one thing I did that I had never, ever done was I accepted the medication. And for 10 years, I've been having different types of talking therapies. And there's like, I've just got to the point where I'm willing to try anything. Talking is not going to get me out of this box. He's still in my eye. So
Yeah.
did that, and that was the best thing I ever did. That changed absolutely everything. So that feeling of being a tightrope, just being like that all the time, just disappeared. And I thought, like, after coming back to work, I thought, oh, it's been nearly a year now. I guess I could probably come off. And I came off them slowly, and I was off them for 3 weeks, and I came back. So that's when I realised this is probably long term. Changed my medication because it was stopping me from sleeping onto something else. And it's just like feel like a normal human being. And I've been able to do everything with Bold as Brass, do my job really, really well. Yeah, and I build myself again and just put loads of extra into personal development and leadership, and like all the stuff that we've been doing with you and reading around it, and actually being able to take that in and just being like, I want to be a sponge again. I want to learn. And it's just been, getting over it has been such an amazing experience, because I realize probably for the last 20 years, I felt like shit.
It's like with physical pain, right? We do this, like, it's the same thing with physical pain. When you have a physical pain for a long period of time, like, you see people who've had a back pain for like 15 years or whatever, leg pain, and they're just like, well, it's just been there for so long now. Like it just becomes, you kind of accept it as the norm until it goes and you're like, what? There is actually something outside of this. Like, how was it for you to talk to somebody about the man from the Navy? Because I imagine that was really difficult, right?
Didn't tell my husband.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't tell him till quite a long time afterwards, because I was worried he was going to think that I was crazy, or just be like, fine, it's all right, just not take it seriously. So I just didn't tell him. And the first person I told was my sister-in-law, because she just said that if you are getting visions all the time, that is a clear indicator. And it's like, yeah, the falling down the stairs vision just won't go away. I get it multiple times an hour. And also Navy man. Oh, thank you.
Put this up for you in case you can't see it, but I think that is, yeah, I think that's a fair statement from Shireen for sure, absolutely. So, what would you tell anybody who is going through a similar thing? What's a piece of advice you would leave with somebody who thinks they might be suffering with postnatal depression, or if maybe even they don't know and things just aren't right?
I think listen to the people around you saying that you're not right, or like, is it really normal to be that angry, and everybody's got their own thing. But I think my partner, it's pretty obvious. You could tell that you're crying all the time. That you don't normally cry all the time. You never cry, but not quite this much. Yeah. And then accept the help. If somebody's saying, I think it would be really good if you tried some talking therapies, just give it a crack. Because if it's not going to work, maybe then you're fine. And it's the same with the meds. Like if you're fine, they're not going to make a difference. So you're not going to feel anything different. And then you can just slowly come off them. But if they are actually going to help you and suddenly you feel amazing, isn't it exactly the same as taking medication for high blood pressure? There is there's no shame in it. And like I had always said no because I thought that it was the easy way out. Take them again, definitely. If I could go back and take them now 10 years ago, I would have, because it would have made me feel that much better. So yeah, and in the workplace, you wouldn't believe how many people will crowd around you and say, my wife had this, or I have that, or just start talking, and people are straight away there to support you or share their experience. Like this is so common. It doesn't need to be taboo.
I found that to be true about anything that we actually think to be taboo, and also strange or weird even. So I've had it in a lot of experiences in my life where I've been through something that I think, oh my god, this is so embarrassing, or this is shameful. How could I do it? It's the minute you say something, it's like everybody crawls out the woodworks, go, oh yeah, me too. I know somebody about that. Like, and I've had it on some like deeper, darker things. I've had it with some, like, I don't know, I once had a medical condition that I'd never heard of in my life. I've got this infection in my inner ear called labyrinthitis. And I was like, that sounds like a made up thing for a start. But I actually fell on a railway track because I was so dizzy. But anyway, I said about it, and oh yeah, my uncle had that. Oh yeah, my sister had that. And this is what they did. And this is what, and it's like, oh, right. Okay. Like just it happens in so many things. Like the minute you start telling people, you realize that somebody knows somebody, or somebody has experienced, and the learning that you get from that is going to be a lot better than sitting in a hole on Google trying to find things, trying to find the answers that you're looking for. Like, speak to people, learn from other people as well. And do you know what? If they haven't been experienced it, now they're able to support you because they know. Mm-hmm. If they don't know, they can't support you in the right way. They can't offer you what it is that you might need at that point.
Yeah.
But I love to hear like the level of support that you got, like when you reached out. So that's it, early. It's like early intervention. Like, how can you reach out at the earliest possible point? Because the help is there. You can get support. There's incredible people out there to help you, and there is certainly no shame in it.
Yeah, and the women that helped me. So there was the one guy, and then there was all the women. It's just funny that the one person who was at the top was a man, and everybody else was a woman. I didn't think about that.
but what I like, though, to take from that story, and to take what you said at the beginning about, we've got 465 members in the group, and then we've got a growing ally group as well, because a lot of people look into women's networks and it's like, oh, it's just all about man bashing, and it is absolutely not about that at all. And that's why I love the fact that you've set up an allies network as well. Like, that's incredible. And it's not like you said, when you go into the scenarios of being treated or being supported, it doesn't matter if they're a man, a woman, it makes no difference. It's about being a good person. It's about listening. It's about not judging, not, all of those things, supporting each other. It doesn't matter. We're trying to fix a problem. And it's not about, like you say, it's not about man bashing. We've got a whole allies network set up there. So I love that.
Yeah. It's not what Voters Brass is about. It's about putting the ideas forward to actually make a change. Because you can't moan about it forever. We want to say, right, you can see what the problem is. Now let's be the ideas people and push out what could change it.
Yeah, love it. Well, it has been absolutely incredible having you on here. So like I said, if you have not joined the Borders Brass Network and you are working in any of those fields, mining, geology, construction, quarrying, all of those things that we mentioned earlier, definitely head over and look and go join there. I've been delivering some workshops in there in March, and if you join, you can still join and get the replays of the first two, and there's another one coming on the 31st of March. So if you join, you'll be able to join me on that as well, which will be amazing, and I would love to see you there. Any parting words, Katherine, before you go?
I think what we've been doing with you has been fantastic for the women who have fed back to me, and all of the coaches that we've had this year have made such a difference. And it really doesn't take much, because you say you want to empower the individual, and I want to change all of the outside, but you can't. They work together. There's pointless changing one and not the other. They both need to work together. So it's really exciting at the moment. I really feel that we're making a change, and things are happening so much quicker than they used to.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. I feel like that is going to be the outtake of the reel for this. I always create a little reel, and I think that is going to be it, because I love that. I really love it. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, Katherine. And I can't wait to see where the next year takes us, because we've got some exciting projects in the pipeline that we're definitely going to be working on together.
Yeah.
See you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody. Bye. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to hit like, subscribe to my channel so you never miss an episode, and leave a comment below. If you enjoyed this episode, remember